The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and thank you for being such a part of our community, that you guys have been so patient because we've been moving and it takes a while to get into the new studio. And so we've got a great show for you today, and it's in this different setting. It's like, what's going on? So I'm in my office. I'm right next to the studio. By this time next week, I think we're going to be in the studio. Fingers crossed. Uh, let's hope and pull. It takes a minute, you know what I'm saying? But we don't stop doing shows. And somebody wrote to me the other day and said, "Thank you for keeping the content coming. Thank you for being patient with us and having." So this is my new office, you guys. This is kind of a very fun thing. We got a great show for you. A wonderful guest who is a mover and shaker. We always talk about the power of one. Oh my goodness. The power, this lady inspires me to do more. And she's doing a lot and creating a lot of opportunities for people in her neck of the woods. So hang on, because if you're somebody who loves individuals who are on the spectrum, or you yourself are on the spectrum, you are going to love our guest today and the things that they're going to talk about. Let me first say that we are premiering this show. As I said, we pre-recorded it, but we're premiering this show. And we hope that you guys are grooving and moving on these shows, even though it looks like we're back in COVID. We're not. And it looks different. We've never seen this background before. Do you love the picture of my son in his car? And this is a lovely, I'm giving you a tour of my office right now. This is a lovely award that they gave us at NASA when we brought Temple Grandin. There's some more pictures of my kiddo that's there, and a lovely painting. You can't see the whole thing that a friend of mine did. She's so talented. Anyway, thrilled to be here with you guys, reminding you that this is showing live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We would love to hear from you. We want to know your thoughts, your feelings, your questions, your concerns, and we want to be able to interact with you, and so does our guests. So feel free to be writing in whenever you feel so moved. All right. I also want to say that the show is available as you're watching it. It'll be available as a free podcast wherever you download your podcast. Please check that out. It's very important to us that we keep it free, right? It's something that we've been working on. We're in our 15th year now, and that's been a little bit interesting. But one of the ways that we make that happen is we defray the cost of the download that you get by allowing advertisers to take up space when you're listening. So you'll be listening, and then you'll come to a point and there'll be an advertisement. We hope that you embrace that, because that is what's making it free for you. If you prefer to not have that, there is another way to do that. It's a very low monthly cost, $5 a month for you to pay for it ad-free. Also, the other nice thing about it is it just shows up in your inbox. You don't have to go looking for us. Everything we do here at the Autism Network shows up in your inbox, and it's ad-free and for $5 a month. So you go to Glow, like glow as in, brilliant, GLOW, glow.fm/autism live. And I mentioned it's Autism Live, but it's really everything that's on the Autism Network. So you will get not only Autism Live and Parent to Parent and all those things, but you will get Ask Dr. Doreen as well. So very worth it, $5 a month. It's there in your inbox, and then you get to decide when you listen, and it's ad-free. Woo, so good. All right. So we like to do something here when we have a guest on. We call it Jargon of the Day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. I'm trying to figure out which one of these things that I want to pick, because we're going to do Jargon of the Day. I just don't normally do it this way. I guess I'm going to do it this way. So there we go. Hopefully you guys are able to see that now. Our Jargon of the Day today is ADA. And for those of you who maybe this is your first time checking out the show, we do Jargon of the Day because it can be so overwhelming when people are using all this alphabet soup to describe things that might be important to you or someone you love, right? And you spend so much time having to go and look these things up. And people always say, well, why don't you ask the person? Well, first of all, because that slows the conversation down. And maybe you were hearing something you really wanted to hear. And so you write terms down and you go and research them. But sometimes that's hard too. So we try to elucidate for you. We have a whole playlist, Jargon of the Day. Go check it out if you want to. If there's a term that you need to understand and you want a little bit more than just the textbook, come visit us because we like to give you the nuances of it. So I guess I thought we'd done this, and maybe we have, but I just don't know where the file is. But ADA, pretty important, especially right now. So let's jump in here and see if we can't make heads or tails. The first slide now, I always like to give you what Google AI has to say, because I find that it's pretty good. And sometimes because it's pretty mainstream, I like to point out things that I'm like, maybe not. Or maybe I'd like to put, this with it so that that makes a little bit more sense. So one jargon term at a time. ADA stands for the Americans with Disabilities Act. It is a civil rights law enacted in 1990. I got to be honest with you, I didn't realize it was that late. I am an adult child of a woman who was easily described as disabled. And to think that this was not a part of everything until 1990, it certainly, helps me to clarify a lot of my childhood memories when we couldn't go, say, to a museum because my mom could not get up the stairs. But it breaks my heart to think that we didn't have this till 1990. But enacted in 1990, it prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities in many areas of public life. It ensures equal opportunity and access for people with disabilities in areas like employment, transportation, and public accommodations. The ADA also requires employers to provide reasonable accommodations to employees with disabilities. And I think this is why this is a very timely thing. We're going to get into this a little bit, but I want to go through these things and give you what AI says is the definition of all these things. So let's start with it prohibits discrimination. Google AI says the ADA prohibits discrimination based on disability in employment, state, and local government, public accommodations, commercial facilities, transportation, and telecommunications. So let's talk about me being a little kid, and there were museums that I wanted to go into, and I could not go because my parent could not enter them because the stairs prevented her from entering. There was a lot of my childhood that my mom was either in a wheelchair or on crutches. And so there were places that we just knew we can't go there. What a massive bummer. And also what a massive it's not just discrimination, you guys, because when we have discrimination and we prevent somebody from going, then we prevent all the things that could have happened as a result. Now, I managed to go to a lot of museums in my life, and I have taken my son to a lot of museums so that he can appreciate things. It's always a mind expanding thing. And what did I miss? What did I miss that might have informed who I am as a person? Do you know what I'm saying? And that's just a museum. What about, there were places that we had to go home because my mother couldn't use the restroom. There are all kinds of these things that, think about our kiddos on the spectrum. And imagine if every place we ever went into had blaring speakers, because there's a lot of people that because there are places like that. Can we be real here for a second? And some people don't mind it. I am a person who's had to go up to the front and say, can you lower that music? Can I be honest? I love Chipotle. I love eating at Chipotle. I never eat in a Chipotle because music's too loud. Hello, Chipotle. Right there. But just having the accommodation of headphones, I could put headphones on. And for our people that are on the spectrum, often they will put headphones on. If we were to say that's not allowed, headphones aren't allowed in here for whatever reason, we'd be cutting off access. So not a good thing. How about defines disability? Well, this one is a little bit touchy, right? A disability under the ADA is a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. A record of such impairment or being regarded as such as having such an impairment. So, all right, this is one that I'm going to take a little bit of issue with, right? Because I can hear my mother now saying impairment. My mother was very fond of saying, I'm very capable. I'm not disabled. I'm differently abled. Right. And I remember years ago on America's Got Talent, Howie Mandel said, let's not talk about disability. Let's talk about this ability. Right. So I kind of, I'm not as comfortable with this impairment. For me, that sets up already a standard of, well, this is what we want the world to be, and this is what you are. And I reject that. I reject that as a child of an adult that had something that would have qualified her for this. And I reject this as a parent who had a diagnosis that would have qualified him for this. But there it is. And we have to put things in terms of people who don't understand. So this is the way that they have chosen to word this. I'm like, well, okay. I do think what's important in this phrase is that because we see this with autism. We just did a show with Dr. Grampiche about this, that many of us have some of the symptoms that are on the spectrum of autism, but it doesn't qualify us for a diagnosis unless it substantially has an impact on major life activities. So I appreciate that that is what is in this verbiage. And I also understand a record of the impairment. I think we all in the autism community know that there have been some people of late who have all of a sudden discovered that they have an autism diagnosis when it's convenient for them and that it's a little shady. You know, it's very hard. Nobody in our community wants to call anybody out and say, you know, do you really have a diagnosis? Because that would be rude and unkind, and we won't do that. But let's be honest, we've all seen some people work in the system, right? So having a record of the impairment is, I think, an important thing. Whenever somebody comes to me as an adult and says, Shannon, I think I am on the spectrum, I don't know what to do. I always say to them, you know what? I think it would behoove you to go and get evaluated and know for sure. It's not going to change your life, but it might help you have access to some things. Plus, which, when you speak about it, you will know that you're speaking about it authentically instead of what many people call appropriation. So ADA says you got to have a record of the impairment, and it's got to be something that is substantial enough that it limits one or more major life activities. That doesn't mean you have no ability to do anything, but one or more major things. If you don't have access to a bathroom because of something, that is going on with you physically or mentally, I would say that substantially limits one or more of your major life activities. I'm sure my mother would agree with me. May she rest in peace. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Applying to various sectors. The ADA applies to a wide range of areas, including employment, public transportation, public accommodations like restaurants and theaters, and state and local government services. And this is one of the areas where it's dicey. This is controversial, right? I know it was a couple of years ago that I had a one woman show that we were touring. We brought it to what I consider a very progressive city. We arranged theater spaces beforehand. I was under the impression that everybody has to be ADA compliant, that that's just a thing, and that since 1990, everybody has to do it. Oh, well, apparently there are exclusions. And I didn't know it when I rented this one theater for us to perform in, that it had, because it's an old building, it had applied for and got an exclusion. And I had people that were coming to see me perform who couldn't get in. I was devastated. I asked for my money back. I couldn't. So already there are processes where people can apply for an exclusion that says the rules don't have to apply to you. I don't like that. But on top of that, we have people that are complaining, employers and people who have businesses saying, I don't understand why I have to put in a ramp. Exhausts me. It exhausts me. And I worry for those people. I have to be honest with you. I worry for and pray for those people because karma, I know of one person in my life that was not kind about the fact that my mother could not do certain things. And they had a lot to say about it, and they weren't kind. And karma being what it is, that person ended up in a wheelchair. And I know that that person said, I never realized. I didn't know. Right. So it's pure ignorance. But people go, I don't know why I should have to pay for that. Well, because these are people, and that's why ADA exists, for that very reason, and it's why we should protect it. How about reasonable accommodations? Employers are required to provide reasonable accommodations to qualified individuals with disabilities, unless doing so would cause an undue hardship. That's already baked into this. I hear so many people squawking right now about my business would be more successful. Excuse me, there is a process that if you feel that it would cause undue hardship, you already have an out. You don't have to completely do away with ADA. And yet some people want to. It is very much in danger right now. How about accessibility standards? The ADA also includes accessibility standards for public accommodations. So bathrooms have to be ADA compliant. We've just moved, and can I tell you that even when we were looking at places and planning and asking, so if we built this way, it just boils my blood that there, in almost every instance, people are like, well, but we'd have to bring it up to ADA compliance, so we charge you this much more. No, excuse me, you needed to bring it up to ADA compliance anyway. But I see how building owners do not accept that. It's not a good thing. But they need to. Everything needs to be ADA compliant. And anytime you pull a permit, it needs to be ADA compliant for very good reasons, because we're talking about people and accessibility. So it includes accessibility standards for public accommodations, commercial facilities, and state and local government facilities, ensuring that they are accessible to people with disabilities. I believe that's the only way to be. But apparently, there are people who don't agree with that. How about enforcement? The Department of Education, Department of Justice, and Equal Employment Opportunity Commission (EEOC) are responsible for enforcing ADA. And obviously, we've seen massive cuts in these areas. So already ADA is endangered, but there has been talk about the fact that this is anti-growth, that this is anti-business. I don't believe that to be true. I believe that businesses that are accommodating and that open their doors to all people of all abilities enjoy the benefits of that kind of thinking. And if you have a business, I hope that you will uh, embrace ADA as something that is not something to be gotten over, and feel the joy of when someone who is differently abled is allowed to have access to what you are doing and what you are selling and promoting. So let's talk for just a second about what does ADA have to do with autism, because I think people, and I've, talked about my mother's difference, which was physical. So and a lot of times people think about ADA and they think ramps, rightly so. But that's not the only thing. That they do provide accessibility to people of all different abilities, and that includes autism. So, right off the bat, what does this have to do with you or somebody that you love? Well, if they're in as a part of the education system, then ADA has, they govern the 504 plans. So, remember, we have IEPs, which are the individualized education plans that they're a result of IDEA. But then there is a choice. You can also have a 504 plan. We've done a lot of shows about when and why to have an IEP or a 504. A 504 is not as robust as an IEP. 504s are just accommodations. There's no services. So we often encourage families to focus on the IEP until maybe when your child is in high school and you just find that they're not using any of the services, and then switch to a 504 plan. And there are 504 plans on college campuses. They are vastly different than the ones in high school and elementary. But they're 504 because we have to make accommodations in college as well. But they make sure that the person, it's that equity thing that we always talk about with the three boys that are trying to see the baseball field, and one is tall, so he can see the baseball field. One is not as tall, but if he stood on a box, he could see the baseball field. And the third young man is, not very tall at all, so he needs a higher box to be able to stand and see the baseball field. That's equity, right? And ADA seeks to make it accessible for people, which is a form of equity, right? If I don't have access to the museum, then the museum does not exist to me, right? And so we see a lot of museums on their own creating accommodations for our folks on the spectrum, creating quiet hours where the lights are a little bit dimmed and the music is turned down, and it specifies that, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we'll be open an hour early so that people who are sensory sensitive can come in and can participate. I love it when people do that. I will be honest that I think that some of those accommodations are so new in the zeitgeist that they're not really being legislated. These people are doing these because they want to welcome the folks that are on the spectrum. But ADA is still important to our community. It absolutely is. And by doing away with ADA, what it suggests is there is no responsibility for making things accessible, and that is bad for our community. So I hope that you will join me in respecting and protecting ADA because it is an amazing, life-changing piece of legislation that helps make sure that things are fair and accessible. That's all. Equitable. Really important. So we have an amazing guest who's going to be joining us in just a minute, Rachelle Vartarian. I think I got the name right. And she is an amazing mom, an amazing mover shaker, and has created an incredible charity in Michigan that is really making a difference. So don't go away. Stick with us. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back, everybody. I am so excited because we've got a great guest here, Rachelle Vartarian. Did I get it right? Did I say the name right?
You
Oh,
did.
my goodness. I am so glad. Let me tell you a little bit about Rachelle because we're so grateful that she's here today. She is the founder and president of Living and Learning Enrichment Center. They're a nonprofit organization providing a broad range of resources and support services to individuals with disabilities and their families across 12 Southeast Michigan counties. What an amazing service they're doing. Since 2015, the agency has partnered with more than 100 area businesses and organizations to provide access to inclusive employment, skill building opportunities, and meaningful job placement support. I know everybody's salivating now, right? Rochelle's oversight includes the organization's clinical intervention services, social and life skill building programs, a social enterprise artist market. I want to know more about that, Rachelle. A
Sure.
12-acre agricultural micro business homestead. Oh my goodness. And parent caregiver support initiatives. I mean, you're all the things that I love here, Rachelle. Extending her influence well beyond her nonprofit work, Rachelle is an active member of dozens of regional business and service organizations, bringing with her a mission of empathy, education, and advocacy. She is a former classroom teacher, right there with you, me also, of adjudicated youth and children with severe social and emotional impairments, a former lecturer in Eastern Michigan University's College of Education, and earned dual master's degree in education, psychology, and autism spectrum disorders. That's pretty amazing. And in 2024, Living and Learning Enrichment Center received the Dr. Dawn Gallup Honor from the Michigan Council of Exceptional Children. And in 2025, Rochelle was proudly named the City of Northville's Citizen of the Year. She is the parent of a son with ASD and is committed to forging pathways to higher quality of life for Michigan residents with autism and other disabilities. Rochelle, if we could just clone you in about 100 different directions so that you could be in other states and around the world, I think we'd all be okay.
Oh.
Um, you're such a slacker. You've done absolutely nothing with your life. This is amazing. It's so thrilling to have you here. And I want to start by talking about some of these amazing things that you're doing. So maybe just really quickly, if you would give us, your elevator talk about what the Living and Learning Enrichment Center does. You can take as much time as you want to do that, but tell us, because I had not heard of you before, and I think I'm probably not the only one. So give us the overview.
Okay. Well, prior to living and learning, I was a special ed teacher for 20 years. And what happened is I always worked with older kids, and I knew that when they got done with school, there was very little out there. These parents would be telling me, years after they got done with school, that they were living in their basement, playing video games, and it was like they fell off a cliff when they got done with school. No services existed. And now my youngest son was diagnosed with, which they then called Asperger's syndrome. And I started thinking, oh my God, what is going to happen? If I die, this kid's going to be homeless. So I decided, okay, I'm going to go back to school, get a second degree, a master's degree in autism, so I could know what I'm talking about a little bit. I'm plucking away at these classes, and we're living our lives. I'm divorced. I'm working full time. I've got my boys, and life was hard. It was hard for him, but as a parent, it was just heartbreaking. No friends and isolated, and again, his future, what will happen. So when I got done with this, I decided, okay, I'm going to just start a friendship group. He didn't have a lot of friends, and so every Sunday I'd rent out the Farmington Public Library, and I would start this group. And I taught social skills, but the goal was to help them have friendships. At that point, my son had never been invited to a birthday party, and it was just heartbreaking. So I did this for about 2 years, and then I just kept thinking I can keep doing what I'm doing. I'm making good money. I'm on top of my pay scale, um, and just keep going through this, or I could really try to make a difference. And I kept thinking, if I just stick to what I'm doing now, he's going to be like every student I ever had, living in my basement, playing video games with no hope. So I took a big leap of faith. I quit my job, and all I had was my home. My ex-husband and I had built this beautiful home, and I sold it. I moved us into a very humble home. I was very ashamed of this home, but it allowed me to open up living and learning. And we started in a little storefront, and I started with one program. I called it Friday Night Hangout, where every Friday night we had a program. We still have this. It's still one of our biggest programs. And again, I really wanted to focus on friendships, but I wanted it to be a really cool, hip, inviting place where, they were like, hey, I'm going to the hangout tonight. So a place that they're proud to be. We would dance and play games, and we were right in the heart of the city. So we'd walk to different things that were going on. We'd order food. I just really tried to make it what I thought every teenager would kind of want to do. And it grew, and added a Saturday night hangout, added cooking classes, music classes, art classes. And I just started looking at them, and I started thinking, okay, if I'm going to get to independent living, whatever that's going to look like, I got to help them work. So I started doing a vocational program where I would take them to different job sites and learn how to punch in and punch out, and just those soft skills. And then that grew, and we moved into a second location because we ran out of space. And it was like within 3 months of moving into the second location that we had outgrown it again. All of a sudden, the world heard about us, and people were coming from everywhere. And it was a good problem to have, but this is 5 years in now, and I'm still not making a paycheck. So I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to do? This is a very expensive area. Where am I going to move to? And someone made a joke at a meeting and said, well, the Don Massey Cadillac estate is for sale. You guys should look at buying it. Now, if you're from this area that I'm in, everyone knew that name. Don Massey had more Cadillac dealerships than anyone in the world. And so that's the city, the community knew that estate. And, I laughed because it was $3.5 million. This was 5 years ago. But about a month afterwards, I'm driving by it and I just thought, I'm going to call the realtor and see if he'd let me walk the property. So as I got there that day, I was standing on the front porch waiting for the realtor. And I just had this moment, as cheesy as this is going to sound, this is exactly what happened. I'm standing on the front porch, the sun's shining, and it was a fall day. So the leaves weren't on the trees. And as I was looking across the street, these apartments are right there.
Mm.
I drove by these apartments a million times, but never thought anything of it. But at that moment, I'm standing there and I'm looking across the street and I thought, this is how I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to help people live there, and then this will be home base. And the entire time I was doing the tour, I just kept visualizing every micro business we'd ever discussed. And when we got done, I said I had two coworkers with me, and I just said, I'm in. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to get this place. And what I did is kind of what I'm doing now. I went to anyone that would let me tell my story. I went to Kiwanis clubs, Rotary clubs, Lion clubs, churches, and a local magazine picked us up, did a little story on us. And then I was able to take that and somehow get a little local news station to do a piece on us. And a man was in the hospital and saw it and told his assistant, I want to meet her. I can't remember her name, but she sold her home to do this. And she has a son with autism. And the assistant found me. I met with this man. It wasn't some instant love connection, but I kept in touch and I would email and text and visit him and call him. And about a year later, he started getting better. And I said, would you walk this property with me? And as I was walking it, I was explaining one day I'm going to have alpacas, I'm going to have a fiber mill, and explaining what I'm going to do. And I'm going to have chickens and bunnies and vegetables and explaining everything. And the apartments across the street. And this is all walkable. And I'm explaining why that's so important. A lot of our people don't drive. And I got halfway done and he said, Rachelle, this has to happen. And he said, I'm a businessman. So you have to have skin in the game. And I'm going to give you $500,000. You have to raise the rest of this.
Okay.
Right. And so from there, it kind of then gave me to go back to people and say, I've got someone that believes in me. And the momentum picked up then. And we were able from that point, a year later, we were able to purchase it. So now it's 5 years later. It's been 10 years now since I started living and learning, and we have over 160 employees. We see about 400 people a week from 8 different counties. I think we're saying now 80 different cities that they're coming to us for all the programs that we offer. And we have 4 people living in the apartments across the street. That first little business storefront I had, we turned it into an artisan market. 50% of the art's made by people with special needs. They get the same percentage as any artist whose work sells there. And then that second location I was in, that's where we do all of our ABA therapy and our psychotherapy. And then we're on this beautiful campus where we have alpacas and chickens and bunnies and a bee farm and a vegetable garden. And it's been a miracle.
It sounds like heaven,
Yeah,
is
it
what it
is.
sounds like.
And that's what I wanted. I wanted it to be beautiful. And if you're from the teaching world, it's like,
Yeah.
well, you guys can have that back classroom. No one wants that. And here's chairs that are broken. And and I don't know where that came from, but I wanted to change that stereotype. So
Yeah.
it's beautiful. It's like Camelot.
I love it. And I love your story. And I'm like surprised nobody's tried to make a movie of the week about your life yet. That's got to be
Oh.
coming. Have you written a book?
I will later. I'm not there yet because I've still got big things I need to get done, and then I'll write the
I
book.
appreciate that. I appreciate that. What a great story. I got goosebumps twice.
Oh, good.
And so I don't know why I'm going to ask this, but what about the guy in the hospital? How's he doing now?
No, I'm glad you asked. He did pass away.
Oh,
But
I was
during that.
hoping you were going to tell me you married him, and then
Oh
I was going to
no,
call
God, no.
Hallmark.
He was a lot older. That would have been a good story, though. That would
Right?
have been a great
I was going to
story.
call the Hallmark
Yeah.
channel and say, "Have I got a story for you?"
I
I'm
got on his
sorry
yeah,
he
I got
passed
on his
away.
horse and we rode away together and started
Right,
10 more living and learnings.
right.
No,
Okay. So
he
not
did
that.
pass away. He did. But
Oh,
he I mean, he was just an angel. I mean, he held my hand that entire time. I was a classroom teacher. I did not know business. And we were very mom and pop and he just was very respectful. I mean, never pushed me in a certain direction. Every time he had an idea, he would say, if you're okay with this. I mean, I'm just so blessed that this person was in my life.
But I gotta say too, it's not lost on me that he was in a hospital and not doing well and said, I want to be a part of what this woman had. So I'll bet that you were a gift to him in his later years, that you gave him some purpose and a place to put his focus, because he's left a legacy now. And that's
You know what?
important.
Sheena, I never thought about that. I've always just been so grateful for what he did for us, but I never thought about that. Yeah, I think it did give him purpose. I mean, we spoke on the phone every day.
Yeah.
He became like a second dad to me. I mean,
Well,
so
I think you were a gift to him.
oh, thank you.
And that's how, I know that. So, because imagine you're not feeling well and you see that spark, that light in somebody who's doing something. And I love his whole skin in the game, because that's what brought him to you to begin with. You sold your house to be able to make this happen. You're the real deal. And
Yeah.
that's a gift for all of us. But I'm sorry that he passed away. Bummer. Is there something on the campus that's named after him?
Yeah. Well, that was the other thing about him. He was so humble. He wanted his name on nothing.
Yeah.
So I did. Um, so I'm Italian and he was Italian. And so when his mom first came here, she couldn't speak English real well. So she would say to him, you keep and go. Instead of you keep going, you
Uh,
keep and go. So that was a thing we said to each other. And so I had it tattooed on my arm. And we have the wording of that on
that's
one on a
amazing.
bridge. It says keep and go. So that's to him, but
Oh,
I didn't put his name on it because he never wanted his name on anything.
okay. But you honored him the way he wanted to be honored.
Yeah.
So now we have a basis of understanding who you are and what you're doing, and that you have created a slice of heaven, which is absolutely remarkable. So now I want to give you a platform to talk about some things that are pretty life changing for everybody. That everybody who's watching, it isn't just about where you are, but talk to us a little bit about where you are about awareness and advocacy. We just went through April. I don't know about you, it was a bumpy month.
Yeah, it
Uh,
was.
it was a bumpy month. But talk to us about what you want people to know about awareness and advocacy.
I guess I want people to know that everyone is different. I mean, it is so true. When you've met one person with autism, you've met one person. And this spectrum is so great. So, when I started, it was just me. It was like, okay, I've got this program, and I was explaining a little bit to you about the jobs and the vocational program. Now I've got four different programs just for jobs and vocational work, depending on their ability. And that just seems like, my son, as I said, he's more Aspie. He hates when people find out he has autism because he says people stereotype him right away.
Yeah.
So I keep that in mind a lot. But then I know people that are very independent that have autism that are proud of it. And I want that. I want everyone to be proud of it. But I also respect the person that's like, this is my own private
Okay.
thing and I don't want people to know about it. So everyone's different is
Yeah.
what I would want mostly for people to understand.
Yeah. Even within our own community, we need to embrace and understand that. And that's hard.
It
That
is.
is really, really hard. But I want to pivot a little bit and talk about job readiness and being employment ready. You talked about having four programs. Tell us what you got going on.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing such great things and we're doing it, I feel, the right way. We're taking into account that individual. And I felt like when I was a teacher, that was the one thing that we couldn't get a handle on. It was like, this is the program you got, you better fit in it. And it doesn't work.
Mhm.
So we have a program that's job development, and we've placed 200 people at this. Every time I say it, they'll say, no, it's more than that. The last count I had was 200 people in paying jobs.
That's
And what
amazing.
yeah, and what I love about it most is that we're not like, okay, we're going to help you get a cleaning job at Kroger. If you love to clean, we're going to get you a cleaning job. But we really look at what are your passions. And for example, my son loves computer, so they got him a job at a place that contracted with TikTok. And all day long, he was watching TikTok videos flagging inappropriate videos. You know,
Amazing.
right. And so it's a job he's excited about, comes home and can talk about it. Um, so that piece. And then if you need a little bit more support, we have a vocational program, and that really is our biggest program as far as participants. And we have over 200 people in it. We have a 110 person waiting list to get in it. And we have partnered with over 200 businesses in the community. So the goal is, you don't know what you don't know. And so I want them exposed to all these different types of businesses to see what they like. And it's a skill building program. So, we've got just vast a variety of partnerships, hotels and restaurants and golf courses and children's centers and animal centers, and just get exposed to everything. And if you're, this is the one I want, this is where I want to start learning more and try to have a goal of getting a job there.
Love that.
And with that being said, it's okay if you don't too. It's okay if this is what
Yeah.
you love and you just want to skill build for the rest of your life. There's no shame in this. What makes you happy?
Yeah.
So there's that program. And then if you need more support, we've got what we call vocational foundation, where you're at our campus, you're on the farm most of the day, where you're working with the animals and the gardens, and then half the day you're in the community at these different job sites. And then we've got another one that if you need even more support, more one-on-one support, where there's a house on the campus and you're doing a lot of life skills, cooking and learning how to clean and wash clothes, and you're doing that. You're still on the farm and you still go in the community twice a day, but for very short periods of time. And the expectation is, or the hope is, that you're going to outgrow the program you're in and go into one that's more independent.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So when you said that you've got several different counties that you're servicing, so are these young people I'm assuming for these programs it's all adults? What's the age that you started?
Yeah, I focused on adults because that's where I saw that we were lacking. There were programs, when my son was little, not a lot, but there were some. And I couldn't find any for my students once they, graduated.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's mostly high school and older. Although, I was telling you that I had a program at the Farmington Library every Sunday. I kept that program. So it's for kids that are middle school. And so we've got that program. And then our summer camps, we've got summer camps for middle school and older.
Tell us a little bit about how those programs are funded. Is it something that the counties are paying for, or does each person pay a little, or is it a combo? Tell us about that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And when I opened, I didn't know how I was going to do this. Am I going to have parents pay for this? Is this going to be, I didn't really know how I would navigate that. But what I did, and it took a long time, was I got a contract with Oakland County and Wayne County. And that's the majority of our people come from either of those counties. And it took a long time and they did not make it easy. But I was able to get a contract with both of those counties. And if you live in those counties, the program's paid for you. Now, if you live out of those, we do have financial aid, but it's out of pocket. If you are in ABA therapy, if you are in the ABA program or the psychotherapy program, health insurance, and then our cooking classes and our Dungeons and Dragons and our Gamers Club and our Friday and Saturday night hangouts, those are mostly paid out of pocket.
By the family.
Correct. And like I said, we do have financial aid.
Got it. It's really kind of amazing. Not kind of, it's very amazing what you have going on. So you mentioned that you have clinical services in addition, and are those just for adults as well?
No, that would be not young kid. I would say middle school and higher. We have
Okay.
programs for senior citizens. I mean, and that didn't really, I didn't really even think about that until later, that our people will become senior citizens one day. So we have programs
Yes.
for the vast majority are people in their 20s and 30s, but then we've got people in their 50s and 60s and 70s that come to us too.
Amazing. But because I know we were talking before, one of the things that you mentioned, what kinds of clinical services? Let me put it there. And clinical
Yeah.
services and support groups. Why don't you just kind of bullet point what all the things are?
Okay, the support groups we have a parent support group, And I did that because I felt when I take my son to a doctor's appointment, I would learn so much from the other parents in that waiting room. Oh, who's your dentist? Oh my God, I had no idea that this person. So I do that, and it's free service. We do it the first Wednesday of every month. And then I have ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, and we do it in a very naturalistic approach. Um, and it's been amazing. And then we have psychotherapy. So if you're looking for almost like a counselor, a therapist to talk to, the parents can come to them, the individual can, siblings can, and those are the therapy programs I offer.
I love that. And you mentioned a couple of the different social things that you got. I love that you have a D&D
Yeah.
thing, and you've got these Friday nights and Saturday nights. Are there other social things that you've got the working on?
Yeah. Yeah. We have Comic-Con clubs, we have gamers clubs, we have cooking clubs, we have art clubs, we have music clubs. I really, especially in the beginning, try to focus on those special interests, you know.
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons was definitely one of those things. We had a bird watching club at one time. So if there's someone that's, oh my gosh, I've got this fascination with, I'll work with that person, help them create it. We do a lot of pop-ups now too, which have been wonderful. For example, one of my fears was once my son got his driver's license, what happens when he gets pulled over?
Yeah.
What if he's not going to say to the police officer, hey, I have autism. He's not. So
Right.
what if this police officer is thinking like he's not making eye contact? So we had a program about a month ago. It was a pop-up where we had the Novi Police Department come out, and they came with a police motorcycle, a car, an ambulance, and they showed them like if you get pulled over, this is what we're going to ask you, this is what you're going to need to have out, and just so that they knew this is what this is going to look like.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. I'm so impressed with everything that you have going on. Now, we're both former school teachers. Talk a little bit to our audience about the importance of extracurricular activities.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, well, even just thinking whether you're this population or not, right? I mean, we all need to have a passion. We all need to be doing things outside of just, and I would have to say that, our kids feel like school is their work life, right?
Yeah.
You have to. And, there's not a lot that's offered to this population. I feel like it's getting better. I feel like
Yeah.
more is being offered.
Yeah.
But, I know that, my son right now is in something called Krav Maga. it
Mhm.
it's his identity. I mean, he looks forward to this. I'm sure he's gonna be running in here in a minute saying, I'm on my way. I mean, he goes to it. It's something for him to come home and talk to us about. He has a life outside of us.
Yeah. My son's all about Warhammer right now.
Oh,
Uh,
what's that?
Well, it's sort of like I'm gonna get it all wrong, and people are gonna write in and complain. But I feel like it's kind of like D&D, but there's an
Oh,
element to it that there's all these little characters that you buy. They're expensive, let me just tell you. And then you have to put them together and you customize them and paint them. And then if you
oh,
want to, you can play and it's strategic kinds of things, but it's 3D and they build 3D sets for them to play on. I've gone to the store, I've watched them do things. It's expensive, but there's
yeah.
a whole group of adults that just love this. And when I asked one guy, I was like, what is this thing? And he said, a lot of us work tech jobs and things that are very cut and dried. And this is our creativity.
I love it.
And this
I
is when
love
we
it.
show, look, I painted this and I customized it this way. And it's precision. It's so tiny, you have to have magnifying glasses to be able to do the precision paint.
Wow.
Nuts. But,
Wow. Yeah, I'm
you know,
gonna look it up after we get done.
yeah, it's he's very into it. So and they have stores and centers all over the place. We were on a trip to Scotland and we'd seen the stores at home but not really, but we went into the store in Scotland and the guy showed him and said, "Let me give you a free painting class right now." So he and I sat and painted and that was it. He was
Oh,
hooked.
wow.
100%
Wow.
hooked. But
Wow.
it's expensive.
Yeah.
Like everything else is. So there we go. Let's talk a little bit about, getting to the independence piece and the housing because you have
Yeah.
solutions for this as well.
Yeah, this is as I said, I have four people living in those apartments. They're very independent. I mean, the last person that moved in, though, this is a cool story. She was from India. And so her aunt had heard about us, and recommended that the parents get a hold of us, and I started doing Zoom meetings, which was so surreal. She lives in India, and I'm having
Yeah.
these meetings with her. And we got to the point where we said, okay, we know we can get you a job. We got her a job. She got into the apartments, and I see her walking to work. She's every day. Just recently, so she's been here 2 years now. Um, she decided she no longer wanted to work at this office, so we hired her. But I see her in town. I know she's in the choir in town, and I see her. We've got a program called Girls Talk. She comes to that. She comes to our art classes. But I just feel like, oh my gosh, this person and her parents moved back to India. So
Wow.
I mean, it just feels so good,
Yeah.
that we've been able to help
Independence.
this person.
Yes.
My
Independence. Amazing.
I know my goal, what's going to happen is I'm going to buy apartments. Um,
Of
and
course you
there
are.
is actually apartments that are for sale right now for $55 million in Northville. And so I'm just giving it to God and kind of manifesting this. And
Okay.
my thing is that anyone can live there. But if you have some type of need or you're a senior citizen, we're going to help you. We're going to help
Yeah.
you live a life that's comfortable and everything is walkable. And I think that's one of the most important things.
Yeah.
A lot of our people don't walk. And where I'm at, you can walk to the downtown. Everything is right there.
Right.
The Starbucks is there and restaurants and that gives you a purpose too, a life, something that you're not. I've gone to visit a lot of people that do independent living and I get where they're going. A lot of times I'll see them on a farm or something. I get it, but then they're isolated. They can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So this is,
That's
these
amazing.
apartments, it's a big deal. Yeah.
Well, it's clear that you are a person with vision. Yeah, like you said, you're going to write the book eventually, but you got a bunch of things you got to do. So what do you feel like sharing with us in terms of, you said that you want to buy these apartments, and let's put it
Yeah,
out there, somebody wants
exactly.
to help subsidize that. I got to tell you, I keep thinking about the fact that you're about the sixth parent that I've had on that is in some way trying to do the same sort of thing, and you're all at different places. I'm going to say you win, though. I think you're the furthest along. But at some point, I got to figure out how to get all of you together, because you all have things that I think would help each other. And maybe you guys write a book, write a workbook at some point, so that parents who don't even know what you know, and I know you
Mhm.
said you didn't know what you were doing, but I
Mhm.
would know even less. That maybe, so people can recreate what you're doing in other states.
Well,
Does
and
that at
that's
all
something.
intrigue you?
Yeah, oh my God, big time. Yeah. So if anyone's hearing this and they have the financial means to do it, even if it's in California, I'm your girl. I'm out there. I will help you do it because I know how to do it. The other thing is that if anyone needs support or advice, email me anytime. I want to help you. So many people helped me. I could never have did what I did had
Right.
Mike not come into my life. And so I want to give that back. But I
Okay.
also know that there's people out there that financially can do things like this.
Yeah.
And that's why I say it constantly. I can't, but that's why we need each other. I can do the other piece of it.
Okay. Well, it'll take me a minute because we just have moved, but I got some people I want to introduce you to who are trying to do the same thing that you're doing, and they have different elements of it. So maybe you can be in cahoots together, which is a pretty fabulous thing. So, what is next aside from the apartment building? What else is on your dream list?
I want to create some type of dating um
Oh, please,
date, right? I know dating club, and I know I love the movie Spectrum, Love on the Spectrum. I
love
love
it.
it,
Yeah.
but I want to have a group for people that are more independent. You know,
Oh,
so I
okay.
want to start there, and maybe I've started all my programs that way, and then what I've done is taken the program and then adapted it for people that might need more support.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like there's anything out there for them.
Yeah.
So I
It's funny
love
because
that
a lot of
show.
people have said, we just did a show where somebody said, I wish they were showing kids that are a little bit more impacted. But
Interesting, right?
I just want to say to you, we know we're friends with a lot of the people from Love on the Spectrum, a lot of the main people that they are people that we know well, and the people who cast. So I will let them know that you'd like to see more independent people. Um,
Yeah,
but
yeah. And
and if
I'm
you have
work.
people that you want to refer, they always ask
Oh
me.
heck yeah! Oh my
Okay.
God, I've got so many people. Right. But I was just had a lunch meeting today where this woman and I were sitting down talking about how we could do this and what that would look like. And I typically pilot everything first because if I make a mistake, I'll say, "Oh, it's just a pilot," and I can
Right,
learn a lot from it. So
right.
I'm just looking at it, but I'd be open to anything. I just, a lot of our people, all people, right? We all want to be with someone. I mean, and share our
Yes.
lives with someone, and they just need a little bit of help getting there.
Absolutely. And I always try to remind everybody that all relationships don't look exactly the same. And that
Mhm.
there are all kinds of things, but that connection
Exactly.
is, because I will have parents who will say to me, "Oh no, no, my child won't ever be interested in dating. They're just not interested in that." And first of all, I'm like, I don't know that that's true.
Right. Right.
And like that might be because you don't see it, but I don't know that that's true.
Right.
And secondly, even if we think that there's no interest in a romantic sexual side of things, people crave connection.
Yeah. We
And
all want to be loved. We all want to have someone to
yes,
love. Yeah.
and have a person that's
Hmm.
your person.
Right. Right.
That's a thing. It's very
Yeah.
much a so that's cool. Anything else on your wish list?
Anything else on my wish list? Well, we're on 12 acres, so we're looking to build a building on the property. And I want to have a gym there. I'm from Michigan, so the summers are great, but in the winter it's harder to get out. So I really want something inside where people can be exercising, and maybe parents can be using it while their person is
That
at a program.
right.
I'm always thinking about the parent, how to help them too. Um, what else? What else? I would love to have a bigger art studio. But we're getting there. We're getting there.
Is there a way, because you mentioned that you have artisans and you have an artisan market that
Hmm.
people can sell things, is there
Hmm.
a way for people to buy things online?
There is. There is. It's called Mod Market.
Okay.
Doesn't stand for anything.
Okay.
It's in
So
Northville, it's in downtown
MOD
Northville.
market
MOD Market. It's in
dot
Northville,
com.
Michigan. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It's beautiful. And like I said about even, where we're at, if you walked in there, you would have no idea. You would just think it's this adorable little artisan market. I don't want people walking in, going, what, this crappy little store. Everything I do, I try to make it so that the person there is proud to be there.
Yeah. I love that. Well, there's a lot of us that are trying to be very mindful with our dollars.
Hmm.
That if you need to buy a gift for somebody, right? There are many different choices you have, but why not buy it from an artisan that is either someone that we've seen. I live in Los Angeles, and so we're constantly saying that the artist life is hard for everyone,
It is.
but
Yeah.
but if you have some social and communication issues, then you shouldn't be penalized and held back from being an artisan. And sometimes those elements could have that effect. So we're trying to be mindful and
Right.
spend our dollars with people who that might be meaningful and help them on their journey to perfect their craft. Is what I'm trying to say.
Right. We say
Uh,
purchase with a purpose is what we say.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So mod
Market. Hmm.
market.com. Great
Yeah.
place. I'm gonna go and look and see if there's something. Heaven knows, I like to purchase things too. So check that out, you guys, and help an artist on their way. Really super important. Are there other things from your businesses that obviously there are people in Michigan that can participate in that, but is there anything else that's online that we should know about for those of us who aren't in Michigan?
Our parent support groups are online.
Okay.
We started doing that during COVID, and they're in person, they're both. So we just kept it after, when COVID started getting a little bit better, we just kept it. We found that it was a lot easier for some of our people. So, and that's the first Wednesday, like I said, of every month. But if you go on our website, you'll be able to see it there.
And what is the website again?
Livingandlearningcenter.org.
livingandlearningcenter.org.
Mhm.
What a great, easy to remember. Livingandlearningcenter.org. And I love that you said if somebody has questions and, that you'll happily answer questions so that they can replicate.
Mhm.
Uh, but you'd also like to be able to take it to the next level. So if somebody's out there and you are like the gentleman in
Mhm.
the hospital bed and looking
Yeah.
and going, that's something I'd like to be a part of, all you have to do is clear your throat and reach out. I imagine
Right.
there's a place to contact on the website.
Right. And my email is rvartanian at llecmi.org. Email me anytime.
Here we go. And it sounds like your son is doing really well.
He's doing good. He's doing good. He's happy. And
That's,
that's the biggest thing. And there were years that he wasn't.
yeah.
So, I'll take it.
Absolutely. Absolutely amazing. And what a journey you've been on. I
Mm.
just want to thank you, one parent to another. I'm sure they miss you in the classroom, but look at what you've created.
Yeah, I think about that, 10 years ago, it was one of the hardest times of my life. I was going through a divorce. My own family was, to be totally honest, not very comfortable with my son. Um, he was, diagnosed with autism, and I'm thinking, God, why would you give him me as a mom? I mean, if I die, this person's gonna be homeless. I get it now, though. I
Yeah,
get it now because one of those things that been happening, I would never have did what I did.
right.
So I understand it now.
Yeah. Well, I love that you were so brave because a lot of us have inspiration, but it takes a lot of bravery. That's going to make me emotional. I
Mhm.
remember after my son was diagnosed, and I was talking to a family that really, who they were like a lighthouse to me, and they lit the path for me of where to go. And I remember saying to them very early on, I'd love it if there was like a TV show or something. And they were so sweet, but they laughed and laughed and laughed and said to me, you need to, have your passion, be driven to whatever you want to do, but take care of your child first. Get your house in order and then, go do whatever. And we laugh all the time. They're like, yeah, we just don't understand you. It seemed like that it popped out of nowhere to do this podcast, which we've been doing for 15 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, but it. I have to be honest. I got very lucky, and people who saw on the way, and moments where I went, yeah, no, we can do that. I know we can. I don't know how to do it, but we'll do it. Even now, because doing the show today, I'm in my new office because the new studio is being finished right next to me. So it's always finding the way. And I always like to say to parents, you will find your place too, and who knows what it will look like. But if you're
Exactly.
open to it and listen and are brave, you will find your space in this community as well. And it's so wonderful when you do. Look
It
at the
is.
happiness that you have. And so now, are you living on the estate, and are you living in heaven?
Am I living in heaven? I think I am living in heaven. I'm not. I When we first got the estate, there was a guest house, and I did live there for 2.5 years.
Uh-huh.
I needed space, though. I needed,
Okay.
so I was
Okay.
able to get my own house, and I'm happier because I can be at work, and when I'm at work, I am at work.
I
But when
got
I'm home, I can recharge and I can
it.
refill, and everyone needs that.
Yes.
So I'm very happy.
Well, that's wonderful. And it all worked out.
Thank
Um,
God it worked out, right? And
right.
that, when you were saying that about being brave, I was thinking to myself, brave does not mean not being afraid. I was
That's right.
afraid every day.
Yeah.
Every day I was afraid. But being brave is continually getting up and doing it. You're going to get knocked down, get up and do it. Just keep moving
Amen.
forward.
I feel like you're taking us to church today. Uh, you know, because I got to be honest, for me, having that vision while we were going through what I consider to be the hardest of times and
Mhm.
going through the intervention that helped us to be where we are,
Mhm.
thinking about the future in which we were going to be able to do other things was really helpful for me. It
Mm-hmm.
helped me to be able to manage that I could envision a day in which when we air this, my son will have graduated from college because
Oh,
it's right.
congratulations.
It's just a couple of days away, and
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
literally walking around pinching myself. But that was my mantra forever, was that I wanted to create an environment in which he had the opportunity to go to college, graduate,
Right.
graduate. That wasn't even really, I mean, that was, of course, that's a part of it, but it wasn't even really on the wish list. But amazing things happen when we keep moving, and when,
Yeah.
and when we listen, and when we're brave.
And it gets easier. I wish someone would have told me when when we first started going through this, that it's not always going to be this way. It
Yeah.
will get easier. I mean, there's other things you worry about, but it's not life consuming like it was in the beginning, doctor's appointments, and you feel so lonely. My son's 24 now. He's happy.
Yeah. That's everything.
There were years he wasn't. So I guess I just want to say, like, just know it does get easier.
Yeah. And we're going to end where we started, which is reminding everybody that you and I are both very aware that everybody's story is different,
Yes.
that all of our kiddos are different. They need different things. But there are people like you in the world that are out there finding not just one program, but a plethora of programs for a plethora of interests and a plethora of abilities. And I just want to honor you
Hmm.
for being an amazing mom, having that vision and being brave. It's
Well,
huge.
right back at you, Shannon. Thank you for everything you did.
Well, we're all foot soldiers moving in a direction, and, working hard to, you know, I'm working hard to pay it forward.
Yeah.
Because I got somebody said to me, you won the autism lottery. I kind of
Yeah.
did. We worked hard. Nobody worked harder than my son, but always trying to pay it forward.
Yes.
So now people know about you. Tell them the website again.
Livingandlearningcenter.org.
So if you guys have questions,
Yeah.
if you want a little piece of the heaven that they have found there, write and ask questions. Check out the website, and amazing things will come to pass.
And if you would ever like a tour, email me. I'll give you a personal tour of everything we've done. I love sharing it.
Now, how far? I'm so geographically challenged. So Michigan's the mitten,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
Where on the mitten are you?
I'm trying to like show you my hand. It's kind of, it's like between your thumb and your index finger. It's right down there.
So
We're
you're
we're
right on
close.
the lakes.
Yeah, we're close to Detroit.
Okay. Well,
Hmm.
that's good to know, so people can place where that is. So
Yeah.
check that out, you guys. And again, thank you for your service, and thank you for sharing not only your journey, which is so inspirational, but what you're doing, because the
Thank
doing
you.
is pretty amazing.
Thank you
Absolutely.
so much. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, that's it for today's show, you guys. Thank you for being. I know when we air this, we're right at the tail end of. We should be back in the studio next week. So if you join us next week, we might have the big unveiling. But until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye bye for now.
Bye bye.
If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.